thing. LAN is undoubtedly more
Hold on,
important than anything.
Are we serious about this? We live? We live? My bad, I was in the text.
I got his ass.
The best
sorry,
response I've
I
ever
was-
had. That's how we should
Bro,
start the
he
show.
got
Anyway.
up.
Fuck it.
Alright.
Start the show with Blaze and
Bro,
full
that-
text.
Oh shit!
Just say, oh, we live? We live? Yeah, that's actually, yes, that's how we're starting the first episode. We're going to cut that out.
Nah, I'm
and then-
like,
Fuck it, we'll do it live.
You keep it rolling.
Fuck it, we'll do it live. Once in a lifetime, something comes along that is generational. But there's not much of that here. It's just Gen-Irrational. Welcome into the very first episode of our beautiful podcast featuring some absolutely gorgeous humans. I am Colin the Crow Clark. You've probably seen me on Gears Esports. We have a college Call of Duty player as well as a former coach in Gears Esports and one of the youngest and highest winning percentage coaches in the history of that game. Over there, it's CT on the top right of your screen. Down in the bottom right, we have an absolute legend in the esports arena. You know him as a possible hype man for Call of Duty. He's worked Apex Legends, Gears Esports. He's a godfather of it all, and he's seen and done much more than any of us can ever hope or dream of. It's Guy Blaze live down in the bottom right of your screen. And of course, wrapping out this foursome, we are going to have the very beautiful, intelligent, and effectual, intellectual, the one and only MLG Great. How you doing tonight, Jazz?
Ooh, we doing fantastic. You coming in here with that type of intro, Colin? Let me give you one as well, because in the top left-hand corner of your screen, you have the magnificent hype man himself, the Gears fam, the heart, the core of the esport, Colin the Crow Clark, the man we all love. All right, hey, I gotta give you some too, because you hyped us up. All right, you got me ready for the show.
That is a modern day Shakespeare right there. Words just happen, man. I think about them, I'm like, those are gorgeous. If you could see those would be a beautiful woman walking down the street, man. Absolutely gorgeous. But I guess
that's going to take us into topic 2 with you saying it's just going to be beautiful women walking down the street. Come on now, Alec. Come on now.
Okay, deep breath here. But we'll start off here. Obviously, the date being 5/26/2021. We're sort of what feels like on the back end of about a year and a half or a year now of COVID epidemics and whatnot. COVID and esports. I mean, obviously the two interlinked. LAN is where everything in esports matters. You know, it's what we want the most. How do you guys feel about, you know, LAN disappearing, coming back, prize pools? How does that all affect you guys' look at esports?
Man, you know, I'll kick this one off because I feel like when it came down to COVID and esports, at the time when it hit, I was traveling everywhere. I was going to Call of Duty events, Apex events, Gears events. We had just came back from Mexico.
We were all in
Tuesday.
Mexico.
We were in Mexico, and that Tuesday
Yeah.
when we got back, everything got shut down. The entire country, the entire world was like, all right, stay at home. So I was, and you know what? We had one of the best events ever. Okay. So
Yeah.
I'm happy that we got that
Absolutely.
one through, because if it was a week earlier, we might not even be here where we are as an esport. Okay. Because
Honestly.
esports across the world changed. But the thing is that we had to go back to our roots, because when it came down to competitive gaming, we started online. We had the online broadcast. We were out there on JTV making it happen. But with technology advancing, esports was able to do it better than they never ever did. And then the viewership through the roof, especially with everybody being at home.
I would say
they
no
were
one's
watching
anywhere.
Video games.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, just absolutely
I really
crazy.
I love the fact that we actually got to see a lot of tournament organizers and especially casters kind of get stretched to their brink, because it was so much infrastructure that had to be created so quickly across so many different titles, where all of a sudden we went from having a couple of events that would build up to this massive LAN event. It's week in and week out, day in and day out. We've got to put on shows. We got to put on broadcasts. We got to figure out who's going to get paid, who's not going to get paid, who's going to be laid off, who's going to be kept on. And then you've got casters who we get so used to being able to feed off the energy of the crowd, being around other humans, being able to go back to the green room, kind of pump your chest up, you know, knock heads with your fellow casters and use that energy going back to the desk. Now you're sitting in a room with 3 bright lights, a camera, and a microphone. You're trying to find the only source of like hype that you can, any energy that you can, and you get to kind of see what happens when you stretch humans to the brink. And you only have that in really exceptional circumstances. So when it comes to COVID and esports, the easiest way for me to look at it is just, I think it was as terrible of as a time it was worldwide for what it
Mhm.
symbolized, I think it was a
Right.
great time for esports to kind of see how this infrastructure gets laid out, what tournament organizers kind of rise to the top, and what casters even start to rise to the top. Because if you can go in on a daily basis, give 120% to all these players, all these fans, all these new viewers, whatever it
Mhm.
might be, then by God, who's not going to want you? Because they're like, if he can do that sitting in front of a camera with a couple of lights around him and be that comfy, you put him on a main stage, God only knows what kind of show he's going to put on. It's going to be 4th of July out there, fireworks and everything.
Right.
Well, so let's talk about the good and the bad specifically, and let's do one topic at a time. So
All right.
let's go. Which ones do you want to do first? Great, you kick us off on that one.
Well, there are definitely some benefits to the pandemic, and that sounds like a really weird thing to say, but I could say the content that's being produced, like production side, from you guys, the casters, the analysts, the talent, it seems to have improved almost 2 or 3x, and that may be because you have a lot more information at your fingertips at all times, where if you're sitting at a desk at an event, you have to do it off the top of your head. So I'm not sure that it's like a lack of skill thing in person or lack of knowledge thing in person, but I will say that specifically in Gears esports, Call of Duty esports, even I've been watching Valorant, like they have so much information at their fingertips, and it really does beef up the production value. And I'm not sure how that's going to look going forward, but it's not like the talent was bad before that, right?
Right.
It just has made the content so much better. But I think that from a player perspective or a coach perspective, like for example, winning that world championship, like what I won it in my bedroom. Right? It's not like I was on main stage and was able to hug anybody or celebrate. It's like, do I go make pizza rolls now? Like, do I shower? Like, what do you even do?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's honestly something that's like probably if we transition into the bad. I mean, there's a decent amount of good that came out of, I guess, the COVID epidemic, but it had nothing to do with COVID. It had with like the incredible group of people we have together, their response to it, quite honestly. Because esports, my favorite thing about it is there's no like requirement. Like if you're good, you're in and you're good and everyone knows it. And I think especially during COVID, like the people who are good really had the opportunity to shine through because they're just all eyes on them. But as far as the bad side of esports goes, I mean, Alex just sort of brought it up there. Competitive wise, I mean, we talk about, you know, ping differences, IP flooding, like
I was going to say,
everything.
I mean, we also saw a lot of cheating.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of cheating over the last year, and unfortunately, some of them have been caught. But who knows? Who knows how many other players are just still skating by? And
Yeah,
I guess
that's a
that
good
will
question.
come to light easily when everything goes back to person. Because if you can't hit your shots without cheating, how are you going to do it in person?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, you go back to online, and that's something that you have to worry about. You know, that was something that you didn't have to worry about so much on land, in a structured environment there in that local area network, especially with the tournament organizers on hand. But not even just on that, the experience of playing in the comfort of your home versus on the pressure of in a crowd with people with lights on your face and with cameras on you. How you going to be able to perform in those moments right there? On the competitive side, it definitely hurt, and it's some asterisk next to some teams' victories out there that they had. You know, even from the casting side, as Colin mentioned, and even you mentioned a little bit, great, saying that you feel like the production value has went up as far as the talent and the knowledge of information that they have at their fingertips. It ain't gonna be the same there. And also, you know, you're gonna have to you're gonna be around a broadcast team, you're gonna be in a studio, you're gonna have lights on you as well. You won't be in the comfort of your own home. So it's definitely been some changes and adjustments across the board. Definitely some good as far as you know, like we said, just being able to have the esport, the numbers going up, the production's going up. Bad as far as integrity happens.
Yeah.
When, you know, when it comes down to the competitiveness of it. So you know that part does suck, but hey, hopefully we're right around the corner. We're getting back to the good glory days soon. Because I miss seeing my homies, man.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
it was more of a social thing. It was a lifestyle for me. You know, and I had a lot of connections and a lot of interactions with people that I lost out on because I'm not seeing them on a consistent basis. You
Right.
know, I was seeing them consistently enough where it wasn't like, you know, we could be Twitter friends. I didn't have to call and check up on you every day. But it's some people out there that I miss, and you know that I miss.
Do
the
we
energy
think
and
that
vibe.
LAN will be returning this
Oh,
year?
without a doubt.
Yeah, it's gotta.
It's going to
The
be
end of
Call
the
of
year,
Duty.
most
Call of Duty
definitely.
is going to start with in June. They're starting
They're
in June
already
in Arlington.
stage
where
4
it's,
final.
Yeah,
Oh, I
stage
didn't
4
even know that.
final is going to be in Arlington. They're going to probably be. I would say most likely it's probably going to be like production
It's
players.
it's
coaches.
restricted.
say,
It's
with the crowd or
restricted.
no?
No, there's no. It's restricted staff. So
Yeah,
everyone needed for the
it's-
production, your coaches, your analysts, your players, and GMs, and that's it.
Well, like I think a lot of things are going to be happening, and they're going to be opening up more and more. I mean, I know we need to stick more, or we stick more because we know more about the esports side of things. But just this past Sunday, it's also crazy when you think about they're going to go restricted at the Call of Duty event this past Sunday at the PGA Championship.
Yeah.
Have you seen some of the videos from number 18 when Phil Mickelson hits his second shot into the green? He had a literal flood. It was a sea of 20,000, give or take, shoulder to shoulder, swarming the 18th hole. And it's like, if you don't think land's coming back
Right.
soon,
Okay.
like people are going to start losing their absolute mind. Because I think that's the other thing that kind of, and Blaze really touched on it. People got so comfortable with every couple of months, I'm going to see my homies. Every couple of months,
Right.
I'm going to see my boys.
Right.
Every couple of months, I'm going to go out and be able to be
It was a lifestyle.
that guy with friends that I know and love, that I got to meet. And I really think that that's gonna, you're gonna see this larger and larger desire and yearning to get back to that. It was like you kind of gave people a full year of like, hey, we got to figure out how to get this thing under control, and 3 or 4 companies produce vaccines, and now we're trying to get people vaccinated. We're trying to get people back to a position where we can get back together and get closer
Right.
together. So now, I mean, and you can ask anybody, a full year, shoot, you knew whether or not you were going to be with that girl after a full year. You knew whether or not you was going to pass college after a full year. You
I don't
knew
know
what
about that
you-
one,
you
but we're
don't
getting
know.
there.
Look, after a year, if that's not long enough for a test drive, my man, you better take that car back to the lot right now, okay? You better figure that one out.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, on that point that you just made, like at least growing up, cycling through groups of friends, I've found that my most consistent, loyal, and best friends actually came from gaming, and that meeting them and only seeing them every now and then only made those friendships more
That
valuable.
was stronger. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
When we got a chance to meet up, it was a party, bro. It was a fucking party. Hell, we had a good time and we made memories. We were living our life, exploring city to city, making new experiences.
We didn't care about
connections and
age. We didn't
networking.
care where you were from. We didn't care about anything.
Right.
We got along in game, and even if we didn't get along in game, we got along in person.
But
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
goes back to what CT said. I mean, CT talking about gaming and esports. It's without a doubt probably the truest meritocracy on the planet.
Yeah.
If you're good, if you got it, if you got the merit, you're gonna find yourself in the right circles with the right people. And if you ain't got it, yeah, you might be on the lower end of them right circles, but you're still gonna be just on the outer reach. And people are gonna be looking at you like he's either on a come up or
You
he
don't have
needs
that
one or two
opportunity.
things.
You always have eyes on you. Like,
Yeah, it's
always.
a true meritocracy, which is probably one of the more beautiful things about esports in general.
I
Yeah.
also think that from a player or a competitor's perspective, I mean, watching prize pools go down when companies were saving money has to be somewhat unmotivational.
Demotivating.
Not sure what the word is.
Demotivating.
Demotivational.
This is Gen-Irrational, and you're unmotivational. Apparently, I guess that's how that works.
Unmotivational.
Yeah. Unmotivational.
I know you guys understand what I'm saying.
No.
Yeah.
We got you.
I guess people were spending less money for, in terms of expenses, right? Some people didn't have to be paying rent. A lot of people moved back in with their parents. Many competitors still live with their parents. So I'm not sure how big of a wrench in the wheel that is, but I'm sure that everybody wants the prize pools to go back to what they were. And if that means going back, requiring them to be on LAN, then I'm sure everybody's in a rush to make that happen outside of seeing your friends.
Blaze, you'd agree that prize pools, they had to go down. They had to.
Yeah.
You're not gonna give away the massive bag for somebody sitting inside of their bedroom, especially when nobody's spending money. You're not getting a lot of you're getting ad revenue now.
Are
but
they
you're
not
gonna give
generating
away
more
the
ad revenue though?
Well, listen to this. So this is my opinion.
Yeah,
on
but
it.
that's your opportunity. But you're also not spending all the money on going into a stadium. You're not spending all the money on security.
You're not spending those venue costs, the
yeah.
security, the
Right.
broadcast team. It's
Okay.
a lot of money that goes into producing these events, right? And
Sure.
on the flip end that they get back from advertisement dollars, the interaction, the viewership numbers. It's a lot that goes into that. And honestly, some of these companies may not make money back on those events specifically, but because of the game and wanting to get into the esport, so they're not spending the money on the venues, but viewership numbers are up. more people are watching esports. More in-game content is probably being purchased as well. All right, we know
Yeah.
where those COVID checks are going. So, you know, so
Skin
on the
packs.
flip end, especially for that, they're probably making a lot of money in that, and they're stacking that money. They're thinking about, okay, what's next? Honestly, it probably helped a lot of esports, just building community, getting more of a structure in the esport. Yeah, you know, I think you need to take less money. Hopefully, they're pocketing some of that money and say, okay, well, when the next LAN happens and we can actually have our real season, we could do it bigger than ever because we're bringing in a lot of money. We have less costs. Viewership numbers are going up. People are watching this more often now because they're
Right.
at home. So hopefully, I'm hoping that these esports invested back in the right ways, okay? Because
I
that's
would like to
something
see
super
that.
important. That's a
Yeah.
whole nother conversation on what's the right way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just at the end of the day, it's crazy to see that, you know, with everything going on, we've changed everything about gaming. It feels like it never really stopped. Like there was a transition period into like the new what gaming looked like. But quite honestly, as we get into the future of different events, they're always going to be LAN focused and they're going to be built to be watched on LAN. But for the thousands, the vast majority of people who aren't on LAN watching it, the experience is going to be way better because of the practice and the forced evolution we've had this past year. I mean, I think it's just better overall, just for the broadcast.
I mean, I got no disagreement on that. Again,
Yeah, me neither.
it really just harkens back to, like you said, people went through a transition period, and that's at the end of the day, that's all gamers and gaming is. Gamers and gaming is evolutionary. It's not static. It's never a quiet pond. There's always a ripple on it where if you find yourself at the front end of the ripple, you end up transitioning and evolving easier. If you find yourself on the back end and you're waiting for the pond to resettle, you can get left in the dust. So, I mean, all the transition, everything that's going on now, it's just
And I
it'll
tell you,
eventually go back to a sense of normalcy,
uh-huh.
but that sense of normalcy will now be heightened because everybody will understand better what we I don't want to use the word lost, but basically what we like in a
Right,
reference in a
right.
term, what we lost.
And I say this, as gamers, we know how to evolve and progress, all right? Because
And we definitely know how to stay at home and play video games.
Yeah, it's one of the first things that we learned. Even as an industry, we've been evolving and progressing even before COVID. And we did a good job with this, and we're gonna keep on moving on through. Hell, okay. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's a great way to end this one.
Yeah. And I guess transitioning sort of, we were talking about it's hard to verify things online. I'd say one of the most difficult things to verify alongside, you know, the comfort of your bedroom is like it's a very deregulated environment. Like we're taking all these players out of the spotlight. They can do whatever they want. I mean, we've seen it even on land, you know, bathroom breaks, Adderall usage, all kinds of other things. What are you guys' thoughts on, you know, I know Alex, this was a pretty close one for you, like Adderall and gaming and competition versus not and everything else.
I think that there is way too much access to Adderall, which creates opportunities for abuse. But I don't want to sit here and say that I'm a better player without it because it's definitely not true. And as someone who has ADHD and has been prescribed Adderall since I was 12 or 13, like I'm not a big fan of being on the drug. The side effects are really annoying, right? Lack of sleep, lack of eating, socialization is forced. And like, let's say I take an Adderall in the morning and then I go sit on my phone, then that whatever I'm doing on my phone turns into a 4-hour ordeal because I'm just so focused on whatever it is that I'm doing on my phone. And then next thing you know, I've skipped lunch, right?
Right.
So
Yeah, you in there.
I think
Right.
I think we're all on the same page with saying like Adderall should not be used without a prescription, especially for the competitive sort of advantages and other things it can give you. But like, where does the line stop? Because like question like beyond specifically Adderall, let's say like to get in the zone and lock in, you need to go out back behind the stage and go shotgun a beer in between rounds. Like that just gets you loose in the
You calling me
zone.
out?
You're over 21, legal, right? Like,
Are
should
you
that be
calling me
allowed?
out?
Like,
So-
where
so
do we draw that
CT,
line?
Do you mind real quick? I'm gonna jump in on this because I think out of the four of us, I'll probably have the most lawful evil to reference D&D outlook.
Right,
on this
right, right.
Because
Send it.
as most everybody knows, anybody that knows me, I don't do anything. My drug of choice is competition. I don't put anything into my body outside of that. Basically, I'm like, look, if you need something to get you there, there should be guidelines set forth by the tournament whatever the operation is. If it is outside of those guidelines, it's bannable offense, expelled from the tournament offense. If the guidelines set that you cannot be ingesting alcohol during competition and you are found shotgunning a beer, I don't care how much it helps you be a better player. I don't care if you go from the bottom of the barrel to the best player on the planet because you decided you'd shotgun a beer before a round. If the tournament organizers, and I really believe that they should do something along those lines, because I think
They haven't, right?
they haven't yet. I haven't seen any tournament kind of lay out these guidelines, these set rules. We've been, and in esports is such a Wild West environment that it's such a Wild West environment because there's so many different opportunities for you to do things either in between matches or backstage, out of the building and come back in because you got your pass or your credentials, whatever it is. I think tournament organizers need to look at it and kind of set that line, set that bar. Like, hey, it's and not in like a. I don't want to go as far as like a HIPAA violation where it's like, do you have a prescription for that Adderall? Like that seems a little invasive. But it's like you must be prepared to go under scrutiny, to go under questioning of like if you come in like and if you come to my main stage and I'm the referee and you smell like the back of Cheech and Chong's 76 DeVille and my tournament says that you cannot do that, I may flag your team and say they have to be drug tested. If we find them positive, they are gone.
Probable cause. Give the referee probable cause.
But that's why I said I'm the most lawful evil outlook on it. I think that comes down. I don't think it's up to players to draw the line. It's up to tournaments.
What's gonna be the indication of them walking up to the ref? Is it like powder on the nose?
It could be. Look,
like,
but that's
hey, bro,
that goes along with like
look dilated.
I'll do it from this perspective, Blaze. I'll do it from this perspective. I'm a college softball. I'm a college softball umpire. We have to go through training to understand and be able to make proper judgments on inebriation of alcohol or somebody that's off and even concussions. We as umpires have the ability to make that jurisdiction. We had the pleasure of working with one of the best referees I've ever seen in my life, Neff. Neff, in my opinion, is one of the best refs for esports ever.
Yeah.
I guarantee you could get Neff to go through a program where she feels comfortable enough to watch a player's actions and movements while they're on main stage and make that kind of jurisdictional call. Basically be like, it's on me. And if I want to make an issue out of it, that's what being a ref is. That's part of their job. So a tournament needs to set forth their rules and regulations and then give the power over to the refs because that's what they're there for.
I mean,
but
all right. So I'm gonna give my opinion.
Okay.
Let them have it.
Because this ain't, like I've been in esports since 2007 competing, right? Like I've seen people snorting this stuff in the bathrooms trying to get locked in so they can go out here and win a check on the main stage. But these conversations have been had before because some people say, hey, it gives that guy a competitive advantage. Okay, why he gets to use it? He ain't got a prescription for it. But when you start doing that, you open a whole can of worms. I was watching Joe Rogan and Ronnie Coleman talk on his podcast the other day, and they were talking about the DA coming in and regulating steroids. It was like, hey, what y'all got up in here? Why everybody using this? They was trying to figure out why all these kids were dying too, because they were trying to get big like them, but they were getting depressed and because they wasn't using it right. So they had to come in, regulate it. They were just giving out prescriptions to everybody. It was like, all right, well, here you go. Let's just get this thing regulated. So, on a scale that has it ever been that serious in gaming, you guys at home can debate that one. But if it does get rules coming into play, then the question's going to get asked. Then, like you say, people got to get trained and the allegations come in. And the next thing you know, maybe the DA, the FDA does get involved. And it's just like, all right, well, we need to regulate this. Who needs to be tested up in here? Okay, if everybody just using drugs when they want to use drugs, let's test you, let's test you, let's test you, let's test you. And so that whole thing becomes something totally different. And I personally never used Adderall. I had always thought about it because I'm like, it's supposed to make me good at games. And Ronnie was like, bro, I kept getting third at these Olympiads. He was like, I was at a competitive disadvantage. He was like, hell yeah, my homie told me, he was like, even playing field, let's go. And I even thought about, do I want to make this an even playing field against these dudes? Let me pop the pill and get locked in. Watch what the scope do. But,
so are you more paranoid of like the Pandora's box version of it? Is you're afraid once you open it, just there's no end.
You wouldn't go back.
It's a slippery slope.
No, 100%. Like once that open and it becomes a topic to the world and those rules go into place, it's gonna be crazy on it all. But I will say that it's a lot of people out there, because for me, I felt like I didn't need that. I felt like that was soft. If you had to go do that to beat me, you were soft because of that.
Right.
And I had my own
Man said
skills that I was
soft.
able to rely on. So I was cool with that. And I was cool with my guy giving ability on all. But I thought about it, and that's something that you don't want to get addicted to. And I probably should have been prescribed to that shit in school growing up. They was popping everybody on that damn pill.
Right.
But also, I didn't feel like that just wasn't something that I needed to be on. And I just needed to focus more. And there was just other ways that I found how to do that.
I
Out
mean,
here in the country,
that's
if
a
you
big
didn't
part of it.
focus, they just beat you. Out here in college. They were like, "You want a pill? Boy, you gonna get the belt. All right, you ain't gonna get no pill. It's a different 4-letter word."
And that's what I was trying to say. I got my ass up a few times.
Right.
Up, and hey, we made it happen. And in the back of my head, I was like, you know what? I just need to get shit done, because I ain't getting that ass whooping.
well,
Do you think the ease of access to Adderall though makes it almost impossible to regulate? Because if it's so easy to get a prescription for it, then and a league says you can't take it without a prescription.
You're gonna have
But
to
that's-
test people.
That goes back to what Blaze said with the FDA. Once you get legal governmental forces involved, it becomes a whole different can of worms. But it's how much are you willing to go, or how far are you willing to go
How
to
much is it
try
worth
to atlas out the playing field?
I mean, here's
CT is
No
chomping
kidding.
at the
Bro,
bit.
I gotta figure it out, man. The biggest question I have, and what we all probably sort of take for granted as, professionals in esports and people who watch so many different things, is they're all regulated independently. There's no FDA who can put something on all esports. They're all independently controlled. So if, let's say, a Gears of War player, we get these restrictions together, we get this awesome program to make sure that players all have an equal competitive opportunity. Okay, I'm just gonna go to Halo. Start popping pills there.
Let me pause
You know what I
right
mean?
there.
Like,
let me pause you right there, because I want to say the FDA come in there with cops. Okay, but like, hey, bro, we do whatever we want. Okay.
So what it is,
Start testing everybody in this
that'll
bitch.
boil down real quick, because like people will bounce from esport to esport and
Government.
start trying to translate their skill set. But like it's like Blaze said, you get too many eyes on a negative situation. I mean, for Christ's sake, Ronald Reagan put a whole ass war on drugs in California, and it got more people locked up for 30 to 40 years than ever before. You put enough eyeballs in a
homies.
situation, you put enough money behind something,
yeah.
it'll change the landscape like a friggin' dynamite stick real quick, fast, and in a hurry. So I don't want necessarily to see a bunch of people like get reprimanded or get kicked out of the world or get knocked off the face of the planet. I just think that there needs to be a level of, and it might almost go to like a golf type honor system. I know I always reference that, but that's the world that I come from. Like in golf, you know how it is, CT. If you break the rules, you're supposed to tell on yourself. You broke the rule, you knew what you did wrong, you take that stroke, you take that penalty. As a competitor, like Blaze said, he looked at it. I'm looking at both y'all now. I'm taking what y'all said and I'm trying to make this an amalgamation. We're gonna figure this out. Blaze looked at it as, look, if you needed something, you were soft because you needed it.
Right.
And I look at it kind of in the same light. Like, you need to have enough competitive integrity to say, I'm gonna go out there with whatever God you pray to, with what God gave me, and I'm gonna stand up, man up, and I'm gonna beat you down.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of, and not every player who has taken Adderall has went out there and been super successful. Okay.
Yeah.
Not everyone has been that successful. Yeah, it may make you play consistent, but as a teammate, you're gonna get quiet. Okay,
Just
that's
zone
one thing
in.
we talked about. Okay,
Yep.
Everybody
Or
be
you're gonna
so
pull an
locked in.
Alex on main
They gonna be a
stage
shitty
and just
teammate,
try to
so
kiss
you better
somebody.
hit those shots.
No, but that's absolutely fair. I mean, thinking about, expanding, looking at, the path to pro or everything across the dozens of professional esports out there, like the games have different responsibilities. Some are more team oriented than others. I mean, there's games like Rocket League where I think Adderall would go crazy with, just because there's not a whole lot of communication between players. You see everything, right? You just being walked in and doing the ball math and the flight math and everything else. But then there's other esports, especially Gears, Call of Duty, fighting games would be an amazing one. It's crazy to try and navigate and figure everything out. But I guess it's sort of
out of the three of you, Blaze has seen me at my best and my absolute worst, right? And he'll tell you though, when I was drinking or doing drugs at these events, I was the loudest person in that room, right? It didn't matter the stats, because I was in the other team's head the entire time, screaming at them, right?
Mm-hmm. That
And that's
He did- he
intimidating
did
on
tell a
land.
French guy to push him.
Was, you know?
Yeah.
He did
That was
tell
what
him.
the
I
focus
did,
was.
I did, but that was Adderall. He
Speaking
had
of the
0
devil,
kills,
they
and I
shall
stood up. I
appear.
was like, "Push me!" And then he pushed me, and he killed me.
Hey, you gotta say it though. You gotta see it.
Yeah, you gotta.
Everybody learned lessons in that moment.
No. Yeah.
I'm glad Colin was there for that.
Oh my god. So CT, you mentioned it, and I'd love to get you guys' opinion on it because I think part of being in the pandemic, dealing with everything that we had to deal with, do y'all think that understanding or the infrastructure that was laid out for a lot of these players, and their path to going professional in these games, do you think that got easier now that they got to kind of sit at home and you saw a lot of these tournaments kind of organize out like this is your clear cut path, this is your yellow brick road from sitting in your parents'
Mhm.
basement, as some people like to say, to playing on main stage in front of God and everybody, in front of the biggest crowds ever. Do you think that it got easier with the pandemic for people to be able to lay out a path to pro?
I don't know if
No,
easier is
for
the
me,
right
no.
word.
I think it got harder.
I think it got harder indeed because it's like when you go to your first LAN and you have to play through an open bracket or through like that type of qualification group stage.
Yeah.
That first experience is what makes you go home and say, "Oh no, f this! Like I'm not gonna spend my money and go here get my butt kicked because I'm playing with people who don't want it as bad as I do." Right?
It puts hair on your chest.
Yeah,
Duh.
you start making different decisions when you start, putting some stock on the line there. At home, I feel like some people are still too comfortable. All right, they're way too comfortable to understand the type of heart and tenacity, or just the type of focus that you need to make it in a lane environment, which we're eventually going back to. So for some people, it made it difficult. Maybe for the tournament organizers, they got some new ideas and it was able to make the structure a little bit easier. And some people was probably able to qualify a little bit easier, not having to go to these lane environments and get some opportunities that way. But eventually, the constant will come back. The
Right.
live event environment that will settle everything, and we will see who the real champions are, who the real players are, who coming out to play every event.
Yeah, I mean, personally, with everything online, I mean, I just think I don't know if easier is the right word, but it's absolutely more accessible. And I think that's sort of an upside because when there's no LAN, all that attention and the see you at LAN or do it on LAN, that is gone right now. So what you do online actually starts to matter, for better or for worse. And I think we all agree when we get back to LAN, you're going to see who's got it and who don't. But in the meantime, all these players are getting looks. And for some of the talent out there, that's all they need. And I've seen
Yeah,
it countless
that first
times,
look.
like in Call of Duty, especially pulling over like Hydra onto the New York subliners, coming over, finding these kids in ranked lobbies. I mean, there's many stories of that. And I don't think it's good permanently. And obviously, we all want to get back to LAN, but I think it made it more accessible. And you had the free time, right? The whole world was shut down. If you had any time to put 40, 50, 60 hours a week playing a game, it was during COVID. So,
And let's be honest, guys. Come on. Like 25% of these top players now that's then came up since COVID started, they can't travel.
yeah, that's facts.
All right, shout out Noxious one time. Shout out Noxious here one time.
Oh man,
They can't travel.
Some teams gonna get a rude awakening and be like, "Hey, bro, we at the airport. You want to play? We need some guy. Our teammates did show."
So Alex, before, because CT and Blaze really kind of set the foundation for me to ask you this, because CT gave you the openings outlook on it. Blaze kind of gave you when they get to land, they're gonna get a rude awakening outlook on it. So now let me bring this to you. I want to metamorphosis this because you've been a player, you've been a coach, you've won you've won a championship. Nobody can take that away from you. You did it standing behind a bunch of the best players in the world at the time. Do you think that there are games, even through the pandemic, with all the extra time you can put in, do you think that certain games it's just still too difficult to get that look if you're trying to be on the come up?
Yes, I do. I don't think that the pandemic. All right, so I think that the pandemic definitely did provide a spotlight for a lot of players. It did give a lot of players better opportunities, as Andy said. They're finding kids in rank lobbies. But Blaze and I were finding teammates in rank lobbies since 2007. But that doesn't mean that they were able to compete, right? I think the pandemic also made it pretty clear for a lot of players that they're better off streaming versus competing. But I believe that in a game like Overwatch, for example, it is impossible to break into that pro scene without connections. I think that Gears is really difficult because of the egos. I think it's very difficult to find yourself on a team,
Yeah.
no matter how good you are, if no one's ever heard of you, right?
Yeah.
You could be sitting there liking people's tweets and
Right.
you know,
I mean,
adding
that's
them on
honestly, like,
Xbox,
what I
joining their
did.
lobbies.
And I feel like Colin and I sort of come from a similar background where like we were just mad passionate and just got out there and got people's attention and got a little
Yeah,
lucky.
yeah.
And then when we got the opportunity, ran with it.
Overly excited
will-
idiot. I will
I
always
will
say I'm the
this,
overly
I will say
excited
this,
idiot.
both of you guys have that we'll say overly excited idiot in you, okay? It's infectious. It makes us all overly excited idiots. And over these last few years, you two both specifically are two of my favorite new people in our community I have loved to interact with and talk Gears with, okay? So I love you with that one. But when
And it is annoying, but yeah.
Dang.
but I would tell you what annoys me, because like when Grace said, you know, we're getting at the top of Gears, the egos will shut you out. So many people say that, right?
It's bad.
But I'm gonna tell you one
It's
thing.
not just Gears, though.
It's not.
Any esport, right? Any esport, the egos. But I'm gonna tell you one thing. I got a motherfucking ego too, okay? And I got an ego to make that shit. I got an ego to kick your ass, all right? So I got an ego to find teammates and let that drive me to get on and scrim multiple days a week and give them all in a tournament to make it to the top and say, hey, what's up? Oh, you want to team with me now? That alone will drive me to make it there. And some people don't have that, and that's why esports ain't for them.
So this is I'm totally gonna go kind of right field with this because this has nothing to do with pandemic, nothing really to do with like egos or what you know. It's just a simple question, one word answer. Give me your best one word answer for this question, and then I'll go around the table and I'll start with CT.
Oh boy.
What is the hardest esport to get into as a professional player? One word answer.
League of Legends.
Blaze.
League of Legends. Counter-Strike.
What about you? Great. What about you?
I like Blaze's second answer, Counter-Strike.
So now the question is, why? Is it because it's got the largest
Ooh.
possible population and it's almost like soccer where almost every human on the planet
what you're doing,
has either
Colin.
played it or tried, and so therefore the cream of the crop is this literal, like it is the literal cream. 7 billion people on the planet, and there's like 128 in the world that could possibly win a championship.
Here's
False.
Yeah.
See, because that's not it. I don't believe that, right? I think they're the hardest esports to make it in because it's so much talent, okay? Because there's so many people who want to make it there. But I will say that they all have pathways to pro tournaments and ways for you to get that notarization. But sometimes, since there's so many people already up there, you have to be that good unless you can get a group of guys with attitude to do something special.
so
I mean, just getting to the highest rank in League of Legends, I don't even know what it is, but I can't even get past silver.
Yeah, right.
And it takes people years to get like 2 tiers above that. Years.
I mean,
I mean, these are games that are very
League and
difficult.
Valorant and Counter-Strike, if you can grind the rank system and get to those master tiers, right? If you can get up there, just being in those lobbies, maybe that's where that recognition will come and those opportunities will come. And I can't speak so much of it because, you know, the only example I have is in Gears of War, right?
yeah.
And I was getting my recognition in GB's kicking ass, all right?
Right.
That's when I
GBs.
had my opportunity. I was like, oh, that's the top team? Let's go.
Right, right.
So that's where it started for me, and I know it's different nowadays.
I mean, here's my thing. There's 2 ways to make it pro, and one of them is like 90% of the time, and the other's 10% of the time. The one way you can make it pro, how 90% of people do it, is you can't just be good enough to play in one of the professional spots because there's no empty spaces. There's no vacancy. You have to be better than those pro players and better than the question mark over your head of, oh, he's a new guy. Can he fit in? You have to be that good to get considered and then fit into a professional system you've never been in before. Like that's really, really hard to do, but also how most people do it. The only other option is to come up with your whole own team. And so like, I guess my example of that was, you know, working with Hive, seeing like these players all together. There were all kinds of roster changes going on all the time. And there's always question marks over a lot of our players' heads and things. But like back like the summer into Gears 5, like we didn't change anything. And came out as like sophomores and placed top four going into COVID. And like that was one of the most successful lack of roster change teams that I've seen. And that's just Gears. It happens in other places.
So
But
like
I hope
I will
players
go
can
back.
get up there now too. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, like I hate to say it this way. I really do look at it as how tough or how talented you have to be to get there. And I'm not saying that hard work can't outdo talent at certain times. Like you've seen people that don't have the natural God-given talent just outwork somebody and eventually make it to become a professional.
Mm-hmm.
Like CT said, he harkens back to his experience. Blaze harkens back to his experience. I go back to mine. There is a reason Jack Nicklaus has won as many majors as he won, and the closest person to him is Tiger Woods.
Right.
That is 2 humans out of 7 billion people on the planet. And if you count all the people up, that's probably about 10 billion that have lived from the time that Jack was winning all his majors to the time that Tiger won his last Masters. Probably 10 billion people that could have existed in that time.
Yeah.
I think it's Defense of the Ancients. I think it's Dota 2. I think Dota 2 is a little bit harder than League to become a professional because if you look at the names on that trophy, on that Aegis, there's not a lot of new names. It's very repeater.
Wait, what was that game that MLG used to have when Gears was under MLG back in 2007, 2010? Shadow something?
Shadowrun?
Shadowrun and Rainbow Six Vegas 2. If you bought a ticket to the event, you were a top 8 team.
Let's friggin' go though. Okay, that's what I need. That's the kind of inclusivity your boy is looking for.
I don't even know why they had it for that long.
Shadowrun was way before its time. Fantastic game. I
Amazing
wish they redid
game.
that one for console. I know esports engine will eat that one.
Yeah.
The Shadowrun, man, that sucker right there was it was nice.
But I remember Rainbow Six Vegas 2 specifically. It would be like there'd be 5 teams.
Hey, don't be hating though, because those 5 teams probably played Vault like 13 hours a day and probably all wanted to kill each other.
None of those guys were there for the check.
Each other all week, came to the event to play on.
They wanted to lean walk their way to a championship, and they were going to do it one way or the other. Okay, they weren't coming out less than top 2 without lean walking their way directly into a championship.
All right, well,
Colin, would you argue that
talk too much trash about them because we had our hyphen years, all right? Let's not forget.
Yeah, we were little, and we're still.
Look, I played
little.
Vegas too. I was one of those lean walking kids. I know what it was like to lean walk 12 hours a day just for the hell of it. All right.
So, Colin said Dota 2, but Colin, I have a question for you. What about a game like Smash or Tekken? Like these games that you are solo, you are solo. You have to grind them completely solo. You don't have a team. You probably don't have a coach.
I think that's
maybe
almost,
early on you do.
I'm not. I don't want to say easier by any stretch of the imagination, but it is less. It's less hazardous.
There's less variables.
The second you have to start relying on the outside to help hold up your end of the bargain, you are screwed.
Yeah, there's less variables, man. Only one person got to make the flight. Only one person got to hold the controller.
Look at Sonic Fox. Sonic Fox is probably the best fighting game player we've ever had in our entire existence.
Yeah.
He can play any and every fighting game, and he can dominate at them.
I'm on the opposite end.
But Sonic Fox did that all on his own. He sat there, he grinded, figured out the metas, figured out what characters he could play, and absolutely abuse other people. And he had to he never once had to go, I wonder if Justin Wong is going to screw this up for me. Because Jay Wong and him were never teammates. Jay Wong was his opponent, and all he had to do was beat him.
Well, so how is there another side to this? Blade, talk to me here, man.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, because like you guys said, that when it comes down to that individual player in fighting games, that it's less variables there. So it's just you. And so you should have a better opportunity to get there. But because there's so many individual players, they have gotten super nerdy with it to the point is you need to know frames in fighting games. How many frames does this move take to make if you want to be like Sonic Fox and Jay Wong? On the flip end, let's say you have 100 all-star players, the best of the best, the cream of the crop, and you're playing a single-player game, okay? Now, let's say that you have 100 players over here, okay? That is the cream of the crop, and you're playing a team-based game. This team-based game is League of Legends. Now, the fact that how often will these 100 great players find their way on the same team to be like the squad of miracles here, okay, that comes together that nobody can beat, that predictability is hard. So it's variables in there. You have to rely on teammates to be able to make it, and your teammate can shit the bed and miss the shot, and even though you're the best player, you lose the event.
Right.
So I think it's a lot easier to make it in a team game, having people to rely on and working there together. Now you could do it all yourself, but it's a lot of other people out there doing it yourself. And if it's a popular game, you are going against the best.
But I think that's why it makes it like, that's why I look at it as less hazardous, because at the end of the day, like Blaze, if you and I went in and played, let's say Gears was a 1v1 game.
Mm-hmm.
Basically,
If you were the best player on the planet and I was not, and I went into every game and you slapped me around, which you probably would, which there's no shade on you. You're still one of the better players on the planet. You would slap me around, but I would have nobody else to blame but myself. Those players that need to learn those frame rates, they have nobody to blame but themselves. If you go to a team-based game, let's say you're in your last match of open bracket, you've got to win one more round to make it to a main stage match, and Johnny Blue Nuts shits the bed.
It sucks, right?
Well, that's why it's easy, because now you don't get to go home and say, you know what? He baited me. He baited me.
There's no tweet for that.
Exactly, and you're gonna blame your teammates, and those variables still work in your favor as well. And you know, and I agree with it, and I digress on the whole situation, because just to be an individual, if you want it, you just have to put that time in. There's gonna be other good players out there, but that's what we do this for, man.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be fun if it wasn't.
I know what Alex does it
kicked
for.
Once or twice, okay? Like, we want good competition, and if our opponents aren't challenging, we don't even feel alive.
What was that, Colin?
I know what Alex does it for. Alex does it so he doesn't get canceled, which is a great segue into our final topic of the night, ladies and gentlemen. Boom! Knocked that one out of the park.
That was beautiful.
I'm surprised I haven't been canceled yet, honestly.
That was good.
Look,
that was
surprised,
good.
I'm surprised none of us have been canceled. All right, look, have you met me? I am a southern country white boy that has a microphone in front of his face on a weekly basis. Do you know how much sweat I have on a singular night casting? Because you know how many messed up sayings we have in the southern regions of the Piedmont area of Virginia? My God, we just had to rename 34% of the schools in my state because all of them were named after Confederate generals, which I'm not saying they shouldn't have been renamed. I'm just saying, like, you wake up one day and you're like, is that Mechanicsville High School? No, that's not. That's Mechanicsville High School now because it was Lee Davis High School yesterday. And you're like, oh, okay, that's who they were. They didn't build a whole new high school. But look, we've had a lot of shady spots in the past year. We've had Me Too, sexual assault allegations. We've had players getting caught with things they shouldn't have, with cheating, with drug use. I mean, we talked earlier about some drug use, but like this was far and beyond in belief. Yeah. This was actual legality that you got caught with. This wasn't like, oh, you shouldn't use this as a tournament. It was like, oh, the federales say you shouldn't use this. Them alphabet boys. So when you look at cancel culture, I think the best way to kind of start this debate is to figure out how we would define that. How do you define cancel culture? Is it a deplatform? Is it no longer having a voice in an area to kind of exist? Or is it just losing your status as a player? Is that canceling enough, or is it losing your platform and losing your voice?
For me, I consider cancel culture a group of people, and you could say a group of people probably influenced by one person or influenced by a singular opinion on a specific topic. And because of their numbers, they say cancel, cancel, cancel. And because of the vastness of it, and they be out here canceling people without, depending on the situation, without them really getting their side off, okay, or just hearing their story and just having the proper discussion on whatever the situation is, because there's always gonna be three sides: your side, their side, the truth, and it's ways of getting there. And some people out there who I'm just like, bro, you ain't nobody should ever see your content ever again.
Right.
Okay. So it should be canceled. But we have also seen some sad stories happen of people getting accused of things, and because of how sensitive the topic is, that the same things happen to them, and it's hard for them to really come back fully from such a thing.
Court of public opinion.
Right. And it feels weird, but it almost not. I don't want to just buzzword and go mob mentality here, but it almost does feel weird. Like, when these masses rise up, like this wave of people, oftentimes, like, because of the internet, because how accessible information is, we think we have all of it. So like on the internet, we see everything. We got 8 different
Well, everyone's
sources
an
on
expert,
Twitter,
Andy.
right? I saw 8 different tweets on Twitter that all pointed in the same direction. I feel like I've got all this different information, but I think ratio wise,
you feel like this is you
Right.
almost feel like this is the truth and this is the way that you should go.
right? But it's all again the public opinion or just a variety of different people coming together. Ratio wise, the amount of information we now have access to. If we didn't have the internet and 8 different people in your life, there's no internet, told you something was true, there's a very high probability that's true. We go on the internet where now you have access to, I don't know, 4.5, 5 billion different people, and you see 8 tweets in a row say something's true. We can't still respond to that like that ratio holds, or their integrity as an anonymous person or someone with a blue check or no check. You know what I mean?
1% of your followers.
Right, exactly. Right. Like with the ratios there, we're still pretending they hold like that. They just don't feel right.
Well, I think that at a certain point, a lot of these people, a lot of them, not all of them, as Colin said, some people definitely deserve to be completely
Yes.
deplatformed
Yes.
and disrespected. But I think I don't want to say majority because I really have been trying to stay off the internet. I'm not really sure exactly how many it is, but I think in a lot of these cases, it is guilty until proven innocent. And if you don't get behind the movement to cancel them and go against the alleged behaviors that they may have made, whether it's true or not, then you're gonna get thrown into that
People gonna be
cancel
looking at
wagon as
you.
well.
Yeah, like neutral's no
And you
longer
can
an
tell me
option.
The peer pressure version of it all, you know?
It's like, why do you care about my opinion of
So-
this?
I kind of want to pivot this and ask a question. I think it's really important to kind of look at in this situation. My degree, my background is criminal justice. I fully believe in rehabilitation over penality. I don't think people learn their lesson when you just destroy them as a person, when you try to strip away the humanity of
Sure,
a person.
sure.
I think
Agreed.
people
Agreed.
come out much better if you try to learn from, like, if you learn their life experience. And I think a lot of judges
Mhm.
do this very well in our country, and I don't think judges get enough credit for doing this. They look at somebody's encompassing history and then they try to figure out the best way to rehabilitate that person so that they do not go back out and become part of the recidivism rate, which is basically
Sure.
just create the same crime or create more crime.
Mm-hmm.
Do you all think that there is a space, and it might be a very small gray area, but is there a space inside of cancel culture that needs to look more at rehabilitation versus canceling or deplatforming or whatever you want to look at it as? Should people be more conscientious of, you know what, they probably did make a really heinous mistake, but do I cancel, do I ruin or destroy however long this person has existed in order to possibly get rid of an ally tomorrow? Like, you could easily turn this person into a much better, more productive member of society if you help them rehabilitate, or
Right.
if you see that there's a chance for rehabilitation. Is there a chance? Is there a gray area there for people to try to learn from it?
So I think you're right. It is an area there for people to learn from and not completely go into wanting to destroy, okay, this person's entirety. But you know, in that gray area, you have to want to understand their lifestyle, and you have to understand the person, and you have to want to do that. And the big issue nowadays is that people just gonna judge you right off the bat just on how you look or
Right.
just how they perceive you to be. They don't give a damn about your lifestyle. They don't care. They don't want to hear about where you're coming from. They seen it. They're gonna make their assumptions. And they're gonna keep on going. And that's a big issue in which we face. But I agree with you, man. A lot of judges don't get a credit on that. Okay. My grandmother was a judge, and you know they go out there and they gonna make that best decision for that person. But the masses, they don't give it. You know, they don't care.
They don't
but
know.
some people out there do need to, and that's compassion, really. That's compassion and understanding, and being able to step on the outside and say, "What the hell just happened here? What's going on with this person?" And having some sympathy. But depending on the case and depending on the scenario, people ain't giving sympathy to nobody or trying to understand or hear anything.
I mean, here's my thing. Here's my thing, right? People getting canceled, the vast majority of them are in positions of influence, power, attention, whatever it might be, right? We're not just canceling, you know, whoever's next to me down the street. We're doing it
Yeah.
publicly. The
It's
whole
you,
thing of
Next
cancel,
GT. It's you.
it's definitely me. Let me get that blue check mark and then cancel me, okay?
Boom.
But like it's happening very publicly, and I brought this up a little bit earlier that remember there's no open spaces necessarily in esports. it's merit based. We talked about that. It's a meritocracy. We're fighting for these positions. So even if for 3 weeks you lose that position of influence because you and your brand or what you've done is under scrutiny, there is already someone bubbling up to fill that spot. And that competition is almost unhealthy. But at the same point in time, I mean, that's how we get new people involved. That's how you finally get an open spot. It's how it is.
You're going to have haters. You're going to have people who want your spot.
It's,
have all of
it's
that.
animalistic. But it's almost, in my eyes, how it should be. It should be, nature and competition and best man wins kind of thing. But on the other side of things, like, you have to think, these people, their whole career is based on this, right? Like, if I were to lose Twitter right now,
people's livelihood,
I would be, and I'm not making a livelihood off this, right? But if I was, and I lose my Twitter, that is my anchor. That's my home. That's where everyone knows me from, is started on Twitter and been there.
But like, when COVID came and we stopped having live events and my lifestyle stopped, and I'm like, oh shit, hold up. Hopefully these checks still keep coming through.
Right.
Events and stop. Okay. My livelihood is on the line there.
What do you look for, Alex? What are you looking for?
Well, I mean, as someone who has been given a second chance and a third chance and maybe even a fourth chance, right? Like, I do think that there is room, as you said, for rehabilitation, or at least the ability to bounce back from mistakes, things you've said or done. And the issue with this now, though, is that an apology doesn't always look like a genuine apology. And depending on what platform you use it on, and or give your apology on, like, if you were to do just a Twitter twit longer to apologize for things that you said, is that you're only apologizing because you got caught? Or is it something like Colin was talking about earlier, where you're actually holding yourself accountable and have learned from it and have been like, it's my time to accept the consequences, whatever they may be. Are you willing to let me show you that this is not who I am, or however you want to look at it? I just think in general, no one is really accepting apologies right now if there's this, as Andy said, mob mentality behind deplatforming these people, getting rid of them, blocking their content, removing all of their support and their lifeline, their livelihood.
I mean, and I think that's why I said it's such a small gray area, because it's almost like you have to go, it's like Blaze said, it has to come from a place of compassion, and it has to go to a point where you have to be able to take it on such a case by case basis and be able to have that kind of compassion. Because, like, and I love the fact that we have the amalgamation here, but Blaze talks about compassion. Alex talks about how that person goes about their apology, goes about their the start of their rehabilitation. Like, are you literally just coming out and being like, I'm sorry, I don't mean it? And then, like, we all know that you're going to go back in the DMs and say or do the same thing.
It's not about the person anymore, it feels like. It's how people feel themselves, or like see different things happen. It's like you can no longer be neutral. You have to be on one side or the other of it. It can't not affect you, because then you're singled out as in that same group, or in a worse group of people who are just not doing anything, not helping, not hurting. It's extremely polarizing. And people then might be thinking, like, am I next? If I'm throwing stones at the witch getting dragged down the street, but am I the next one? They're opening the door and dragging me out? Like, it just, as for some people, maybe it just feels good not to be the one getting the negative attention, or to project it onto someone else. I mean,
and if
it's
you
so
are somebody
dynamic.
who's doing things that are cancel worthy,
Witch, get him up here, yo.
Hey, look. Just because my wife knows how to do math problems does not make her a witch. Okay, we're not living in Salem anymore, man. People. I want you to know, like, I have. If you've never read the Salem witch trials, I highly suggest you go.
I can only imagine
some of the things that, like,
shit.
women were accused of in Salem to be found to be witches and needed to be burned at the stake. Like, if I woke up nowadays and even had those thoughts, I would probably jump out of a second-story window. I'd be like, nope, can't be here anymore.
And you know what? And that's why we antisocial. Okay,
that's why we have the antisocial social club.
Like, let me not say this before somebody go run to their fences with this one. It's just like, damn, why you assumed I was this? I said this, and you just ran with it. Okay, I got you.
Well, from this is just for me. I'm not very PC. Like I wasn't raised to be like that, and I do say things sometimes that are not what's the word, appropriate. But I'm not a bad man, and I don't ever have bad intentions. But I was definitely raised with sticks and stones, and I think we're living in a very fragile time where like it's actually the reason I don't stream because I don't trust myself. I will totally say something and
Right.
not have the intention of it coming across that way, and then now it's clipped and it's on the internet and that's it. And would I have to keep retracting all of these statements, or am I just better off, like as an entirety of my life, just not giving myself a live platform like that because eventually I am going to accidentally offend someone. And someone said it earlier, like I wake up every morning like, thank God I haven't been canceled yet. Not that I have like a significant platform to be canceled for, or that I think I would say or do anything that is cancel worthy, but you know,
It depends on you and your brand.
if you are exactly, if you are somebody like
And that's
me
arbitrary
who does
fuck.
have a tendency to say outrageous things, like I don't hop on the bandwagon, but I'm more likely to hop on a cancel wagon for someone else to deflect the attention away from me.
Right. I mean, here's one thing I'll say. Like, again, you know, the whole sort of shtick behind the podcast, Gen-Irrational, I'm 19 years old. When you guys were talking about those earlier games, like 2007, 2008, I was 6 years old. I was
Oh my God.
like when you guys were
You still
playing
look
those
6. That's the problem.
My
Like,
back just
swear to
hurt when you
God,
said
CT.
that.
Like,
But,
if you weren't 7'1", you would be 6.
Fair, bro. If I was walking around like Alec, shock someone, it would have been bad. But so here's the thing, right? Like I've grown up with the internet. So everything I do, and so I'm used to, okay, everyone's watching me all the time. I think I carry myself really well on the internet just because I've grown up with it. I've always been conscious of that. It's not something I had to be taught. It's like growing up with a language. I grew up with that etiquette because that's all I knew. Whereas I feel like maybe your guys' experiences where, okay, we knew people close to us and had the time and opportunity to build relationships with them.
Yeah.
So the context was unimportant because you knew that person and then had to transition onto the internet where no context, no whatever. What you're saying is who you are to 7 billion people. I don't know if
Do
that's
you
different
think
for y'all.
that
Well, see, I
people
think-
are more inclined to have a fake persona online out of fear of backlash?
Without a doubt.
Vice
Without a
versa.
doubt.
Yeah,
You're so much more inclined to be so much more of either extreme
because you could choose.
when you're not in person.
Mhm.
When
Of
you are
either
not in
extreme,
person, you
yeah.
can either be the worst of the worst because you feel like anonymity will save you, or you can be the best of the best because you feel like it now puts you on a pedestal and you're going to get more respect and more people are going to like you and you're going to have further reach because you're this messiah type character online.
You got it.
Also, I would say just personality wise too as well. Some people may be more comfortable in their own personality on the internet versus in real life. They may
Be whoever you want to be.
more cautious or you want more reserved. Maybe in
Yeah.
conversation, you know, of course, be who you want to be, but that's on the internet. And I only say that because in my own experience, you know, just going through school, I wasn't as social. But on Xbox Live, I was talkative. I was like, "Hey, what's up?" This and that.
Yeah.
And that's why I said that.
Blaze in a
You talk about-
2008 ranked lobby was my worst nightmare. I had to mute him.
He was wild. Is that what you're saying? He was wild.
Oh, I mean, we all
I
were,
was
but
just yapping on
Blaze wouldn't let you speak.
He still doesn't. What do you
You start talking, he'd be like,
Yeah,
"No,
right.
no, no."
Just
So, like,
yelling
shut
over
up.
him, bro.
You said that
I was
like
thinking about that yesterday. I was talking to my girl about something. I did that. I was like, "Hey."
CT, you said that you grew up like with the internet, so you like grew up with kind of this idea and this mentality that like eyes were on you all the time.
Yeah.
And I actually think that that's more of a detriment than anybody can possibly imagine. Just because from my personal life experience, from how I grew up in the backwoodest part of Virginia. Like outside of
boonies.
Roanoke, like going out into the mountainous regions where you get closer and closer to like people that used to eat people.
Mhm.
Like we are the country. we is the country. All right. We go out there and we got the shotguns and the boomsticks and we're the kind of people that everybody thinks we just aren't tolerant. All right. And then I went to high school and I was in the minority like population percentage wise. I was a like upper middle class white kid that chose this high school because I knew I could play sports, but I was in the minority percentage-wise. And then I went to college to play sports, and I chose a college where I was in the minority percentage-wise as a white dude. And I didn't do that consciously, but subconsciously, I think my brain wanted to do that because it made me so much more uncomfortable early on because I didn't know how to interact in a lot of situations. But I think it made me so much better as a person because I got to exist and be around so many other lived experiences.
Right.
I got to be around so many other backgrounds that it wasn't like I went home and I was like, Cletus, you'll never guess what they said at practice. You'll never. I swear to God, you should have heard the music they was
Everything
playing out
makes
there.
So much sense now.
Well, like
Cletus.
So much sense now.
but I got to come
I was wondering
home.
how he landed here in Gears.
Well, like I got to
Wild.
come home, and it was always so nice to come home because it was family and it felt like home.
It was home.
But I was so happy that like when I would go back out into the world, I wasn't a shithead. I understood that people have different lived experiences, that
Right.
people have not had the advantages that I had. They didn't have the choices I had. They didn't have a bunch of crap that I was given and afforded.
Mhm.
So therefore, now when I live my life, when it comes to cancel culture, it comes to worrying about saying stuff or like jumping on people's bandwagons. I'm like, guys, like, first off, I always look at it in the court of law because I'm a freaking criminal justice person. That was what I got my degree. And I'm like, did
Right.
they do something illegal in the real world? Like, if they did something illegal in the real world, send them off. There they go. They're gone. If it's an immoral thing, if it's an ethical or moral thing, it then becomes, did they hurt another person? If they hurt somebody else, they need a good talking to. They need to have it figured out why they hurt that person.
Right.
And then you got to look at that person's lived experience and figure out if they can be rehabilitated, if it's worth rehabilitating them, or if that person might like go back and do it again.
Well, I mean, here's
I just real quick to wrap it up, CT. It's such a murky swamp.
Mhm.
When everybody is in the swamp together, it's fine. The second somebody finds dry land, that person has to die because we're all in the swamp together. Why are you not standing in the same crap as the rest of us?
Yeah.
That's kind of what life boils down to, and that's kind of what a lot of these big issues kind of like boil down to is basically just you're not standing in the same crap as us now.
Mhm.
You've got to go.
Right.
Whereas instead of that, we should all be looking at it as, why are you not standing in the same crap? Is there any chance you could help the rest of us not be in crap anymore?
Yeah.
Right. And then, we always love the one guy who goes on dry land and, he got that gift of gab to be like, hey, y'all, my feet dry.
Yeah.
Y'all should really come this way.
I mean,
This way seems nice.
the biggest thing that I'll say, and like, again, being 19 years old and then knowing that everyone's watching, while at the same time, nobody cares. And like that balance is really, really difficult, right? Because that's very
I never
real.
want to believe that nobody cares.
But I know.
but
It's impossible
that's
to
naive.
believe, though.
That's my naivety, though.
Give them a lot of weight.
Well, so I think that's where the difference in like the way you guys have like changed with the internet, and like me personally, I came on the internet knowing like my first thoughts were everyone is watching and nobody cares. So my primary focus, and you guys could definitely guess this watching me tweet and do everything, is authenticity. I'm going to be me and I'm going to do that authentically. And I think that the beauty of that is people notice. You can't fake authenticity. Like people will know it. Real people will recognize it.
Of our generation.
Well, when you say that people don't care, are you saying that people don't care that everyone's watching, or people don't care?
People don't care about you. You're
okay.
You're unimportant. And like when I ever like my first reaction when people give me shit or like I get in like quote trouble, they've only been like 2 times where I like caught shit on like a wave that was like big enough to remember. And one of them was like a scuffle I got in with Benson, like back when I was like 17, only went to the Boston event, got top total with Hydra. And for some reason, like Benson and I got in a squabble or whatever. And then when I did the brush your teeth with warm water thing, like, and that got a lot of like weird flack on the internet. But like anytime someone's really angry at me, the first thing I feel is just empathy. Like,
Hold on,
I want to
tell me
understand
brush
you.
my teeth with warm water because we're about to fight over this. No, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
we're
cancel you.
I heard your point, but I didn't listen to it. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, Andy, look, just because I'm good looking doesn't mean I'm narcissistic, right?
Right.
That's the mentality that everyone has. Me, 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 me. Andy? Nah. Me.
I mean, and that's sort of what's weird, and the whole point behind like all the internet and everyone watching is at any given time, any one of us can be under the microscope, and we never really know who's next, what it's for, what it is.
You don't
and
want to see my
there's
pores
stress
under
there.
a microscope.
I mean, yeah, but
You don't wanna see 'em.
there's stress there, and like the mental health in the gaming world and everyone else, and especially growing up in it, and then trying to like build a livelihood behind it, and like it's crazy. It just really is.
Very similar to Colin's story, right? I mean, my high school was predominantly rich white people, right? So my exposure was actually in esports to the idea that there are people that are different than me, right? Everybody in Gears comes from a completely different walk of life than everybody else. I mean, sure, some people are similar, but no, everybody is from somewhere else, right? I mean, we even have a European region. I mean, the LATAM region, those that I can't really relate to a lot of them, but it was a significant amount of exposure over many, many years that my life is not normal compared to everybody else. But another good thing about esports, though, especially when we started, is that we could say whatever we wanted to anybody and get away with it. And look at Blaze. Look at Blaze. He knows. We could say whatever we wanted and get away with it.
Come on,
It got kind of regulated once the Astros came out. And, you just kind of got to your teammates. And you didn't have to hear everything everybody said, but it was a year where you did hear everything everybody said, and some people had to say things back.
ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and say this. This might have been a little irrational, but we hope for some of y'all that might have been a little generational. We hope that you enjoyed us talking about whether or not you might be a new pro next time you see us. You might have been canceled and you're trying to figure out how to get back on track. You might have found yourself on a new prescription and you said, I need to listen to some of that nonsense, some of that craziness. But that's going to be it for episode 1 of the Gen-Irrational podcast. We covered a whole lot of ground today, and that's what we plan to do. Drop on in. We're going to have these timestamps. We're going to have you like, subscribe, whatever it might be. Share it with your friends. You need to make sure that you get the word out that there's 4 amazing humans talking over to some airwaves, just trying to get you a little insight and a little information on some completely different backgrounds, some completely different outlooks and perspectives and lived experiences. But for Alex, Andy, Blaze, and myself, that's going to be it for episode 1. We hope you all enjoyed it.
Alrighty.